Hi, Trevor here, reflecting on life through music. Thank you for stopping by. Well, come in again, you're very welcome. I trust you enjoyed my last video on Five for Fighting and through their song Chances, which was in the closing credits of the movie The Blind Side. It's the one that had Sandra Bullock and her character that got alongside Michael, and Michael had a pretty amazing gridiron career. The movie challenges us to think of who we can give a chance to in life and get alongside them. So trust you found that one encouraging. We're going from there to Australian rock royalty today, certainly in their behind the scenes stuff that these guys did. Their story started with the Easy Beats in 1964, who kind of were around to around 1969. And I did a video on these guys a little while back, and the song Friday on My Mind is considered one of the best Australian rock songs of all time. Well, George Young and Harry Vanda thought, well, you know, we can write songs, we can produce songs, we can actually do bits and pieces, so let's just keep doing that. And certainly they were able to do that. And one of the things, of course, if you think about the Young name, think about AC/DC, Malcolm Young and Angus Young. Of course, Vanda and Young had a lot to do with AC/DC getting going. And also John Paul Young with that song, Love Is in the Air. These two wrote that song, as well as a few others. And it's around 1976 that these guys thought, well, we've been doing stuff for everybody else, let's do something ourselves. And so Flash and the Pan were actually formed at that point, just the two of them, and they were just happy to just hang around in the studio and do recording and all this sort of stuff. Very lavish production in these songs. I'm going to get onto a couple of those in a minute. Between 1978 and 1992, 6 studio albums and 24 singles. Vanda and Young were inducted into the ARIA Hall of Fame in 1988, and the Easy Beats inducted into the ARIA Hall of Fame in 2005. Now, the song I wanted to look at today from Flash and the Pan is the song Down Among the Deadmen. Now, you might be thinking, what on earth is that song about? And, you know, great question. Well, the story goes back to the 10th of April 1912 when the unsinkable ship left the UK bound for New York. And of course, the way that you did that, you had to go across the top of Asia in some really cold water. And of course, icebergs were a constant threat. Hint, we're talking about the Titanic right there. The unsinkable ship was not so unsinkable. It killed 1,500 people, and there were only about 700 that got off the ship. And it's still the deadliest peacetime sinking of all time. A few things that may have contributed to the sinking of this amazing vessel, less lavish in luxury, the whole thing. First of all, the lighting of the fourth burner, because the captain just wanted to get to New York in record time. That was the first thing. The second thing was the severe lack of lifeboats. And even though the Titanic had capacity for a lifeboat for every person, it adopted for the look over lifeboats, and so not everybody was able to get on one. The third thing, and this is the thing that movie brings out really well, was the class thing that was happening. First class people had to go before the second and third class, and so, you know, the poorest of the poor often were the ones that suffer the most. Now, the Titanic was a major event. It actually cost around $150 million in today's money to actually build it. So very lavish and just an incredible statement to the world. Hey, look what humankind can do. It's a classic case that, you know, you say that and then look what happened. We had it sink just 5 days later. All that money and all the legal battles that happened after that. Now, there's a couple of little takeaways from this movie and this story today. The first one is this thing of icebergs. Now, you may have seen the picture where, you know, only a very small part of the iceberg is above the water. And no, I did ask someone once, what about if the Titanic had actually just hit the iceberg head on instead of sideswiping it like it did? The answer was it wouldn't have mattered because the front of the boat would have scraped the iceberg before it actually got there. This is a massive iceberg. This one, it was actually very much the underwater that actually did the Titanic in. Now, we can also get into a bit of philosophy and goal setting here, because there is the image of the iceberg, and this is a bit of our lives that people see, the pristine, perfect stuff, but underneath that, we've got a whole heap of ice that is keeping that thing afloat. Now, for some of us, we've got this beautifully balanced fine thing happening, and we've got this beautiful iceberg floating, and yes, the thing above the water is actually going quite well. For some of us, that's a real effort to keep that above the water. So I think the first thing, before we just sort of look at the analogy of, keeping the iceberg above water, just realise for some people, it's actually quite difficult to do that. So let's give everyone a bit of a go and be patient with that. The best thing we can actually do is just to be present people in their story. The second thing, and this is very much where Down Among the Deadmen comes, is the band played on. Now, in the Titanic movie, there's a scene near the end where the 4 orchestra people, realising that they're not going to get off the boat, just stand there and play together for the last time. Very much just creating a little bit of space and almost sacredness in what was absolutely chaos at that point. And I think there's something beautiful about the legacy of these 4, and the fact that despite what was going around them, they decided just to stand there and to do that, because they realised that the best thing that they could do in this world is just do that. And what that meant for those that hung around, and those that decided just to stay because it was just too hard. All of this sort of thing just goes to show that when chaos is happening as around it, sometimes the clear head and the clear thinking provides the best thing for all of us, the best thing for us to get by with. So what these guys did, instead of just running off and trying to catch the lifeboat, they just said, hang on a minute, this is it. We've got to go with the flow here, or go with the sinking, as it was in this case, and to realise that, we're not going to make it, so let's just do what we could do. The best thing we can do, is to create a bit of a final moment for each of us. And certainly such an iconic moment in this movie too. It creates some real space in what is a chaotic part of the movie, that is for sure. So sometimes the best thing we can do, sometimes we might be trying to go in one direction and the world is just telling us not to. Sometimes we just got to go with the flow. We just got to let the world happen. But sometimes we don't know what the flow even is. Sometimes we've got to wait to see what the flow of life is going to be. Particularly if it's changed and there's dramatic changes. Don't just think, well, I'm going to get on to the next thing. What is the flow of our lives telling us? And if you put the iceberg back in there for a second, for some people, the flow of life is just too hard to get that top of the iceberg out of the water, because there's just too much happening below the surface. But the best thing we can do even in that scenario is go with the flow, stop our fighting, listen to people that might be encouraging us around us, and to just let life happen. And then we can just go with the flow as opposed to going against the flow. And if you are in chaos right now, whether you're in amongst a chaos situation with a group of people or whether you're in chaos yourself, how can we stop our emotional brain from going haywire, get our thinking brain to work and say, how can we make a difference in this chaotic situation? Because you know what? The world's looking for someone to do it. It might as well be you. So may that one be an encouragement for you today as well. Well, back to Flash in the Pan. I love the way, certainly Down Among the Deadmen, which has got the talking in the verses and a bit of stuff in the chorus, and how amazing is the production of these two songs. Vanda and Young weren't scared to do anything really with music. It's what made these guys so iconic. And so we've got the official clip to Down Among the Deadmen, and when you see what's happening with a bit of dramatisation then there, you'll see that it's all about the Titanic. We then got Hey St. Peter. This is probably the first song I heard of Flash in the Pan. Such lavish, such awesome piano in this song, incredible instrumental in the middle, and it's all about, hang on a minute, hey St. Peter, I may not be quite ready for you just yet. And in beautiful Vanda and Young style, we've got a really amazing video clip as well. It tells the story so well, and they have a bit of a laugh and a joke at everything, pretty much. So we got the official clip on that one. We've also got the official clip of Where Were You? This came off the 1982 album. Headlines, basically the classic situation of, hey, I was going through stuff and you're nowhere to be seen. Now, obviously, we can't demand people to be there for us, but, you know, if there's a bit of a relationship happening, well, that's just kind of what you do in relationships. You're there for each other. So we got the official clip on that one. And while we're on the Titanic, I thought I'd put a couple of Titanic clips in there. First of all, we've got the sinking scene, and also with the orchestra and all the rest of it. So, you know, if you like a bit of drama, a little bit of chaos, this clip will be for you. Again, the third highest grossing movie of all time, grossing about $2.2 billion. So, you know, that one's there for you. And of course, the orchestra is in there, and the captain and some kids and that whole couple and all sorts of stuff going on there. And so we've got that one. Now, you'd think, well, why don't we put on that iconic, you know, Jack and Rose scene at the front of the boat? You can look that one up for yourself. You know, that's just predictable, right? What I thought I would put in, though, is the very end. And that's where, you know, Rose has actually got away. She's lived the life. Jack has encouraged and inspired her to live her life. And this is a very much what can happen when you go with the flow, but you start controlling the flow a little bit too. You start to work out the way life is being. You give life a bit of a chance, and you go for it. So there's some beautiful imagery of photos, flying, horse riding, the whole thing. And so it's good to see that the inspiration of Jack for Rose was very much stayed with her for the rest of her life. Of course, the whole premise of Titanic was Rose going down in a submersible to see the Titanic, and the story she tells, and, you know, how she was able to recap that whole story even all these years later. So the links to those 5 clips are actually in the description below. And I've also included the last video on 5 for Fighting, which is all about taking chances. Kind of matches up a little bit today. So if you want to recap on that one, feel free. Well, if you've come back for another one, if this is your first time, the Life Reflections Through Music, thank you very much for hanging around, and I do appreciate the encouragement and the engagement we've been getting of late. Well, that's it for today. Next time, there are some massive bands in F-Right. That's where we are in our series right now, and it does not get much bigger than these guys, and because of that, we're going to have to give Fleetwood Mac a couple of videos. So until then, I'll catch you around. Bye for now.